Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and that's a creepy spider thing. Kill it! Ah, help me. I'm not a monster. Spider's curse. It made me this way. I beg of you, in here, find them all, the gold ones, the cursed spiders. Defeat them quickly. When you defeat them, don't forget the spider token. It contains the spider's spirit. If you lift the curse, I'll teach you something good. Hurry, please. So, in the last part, we went about doing a lot more side quests in terms of getting ourselves even some main plot done for future stuff along the way, like the Captain Kita stuff over in Ikana, and even finished up the land title deed side quest. And now we're in the Swamp Spiderhouse, and we need to collect some bugs, for reasons. The spider houses are this game's reuse of the Golden Skulltula side quest from Ocarina of Time. Only you don't have to kill 100 of them, thank God. Each of the two spider houses in the game, one here in the swamp, one in the Great Bay, house 30 total Skulltulas you just need to solve puzzles to kill across a surprisingly small amount of rooms. In some regards, these also use some mechanics that are rarely used otherwise in the game. For instance, the reason I'm getting bugs is that there's actually some little soft soils you can find in here that house Skulltulas themselves. I didn't like these side quests on my first playthrough because I thought they were kind of boring slogs that are just kind of tedious searches. But if you know where they all are, or at least the rough approximations of them, these places are over pretty quickly, and I at least appreciate this reuse of them and repurposing of them. Because I think this is a lot more of an interesting way to use Gold Skulltulas than anything Ocarina of Time did past the first 50. Because I think, ultimately, stray fairies are a much more interesting thing to look for in dungeons, for instance, than Gold Skulltulas, with there being roughly 5 each, if memory serves, in the main dungeons of Ocarina, barring the 3 kid ones. I think there's like 3 each, I want to say? Now, I'm doing this particular Skulltula house now, because there's one portion where you actively need the sword in order to complete, if memory serves. And the other one, you could theoretically do any day this 3-day cycle, barring wanting to maybe, you know, do the side quest with them back at Romani Ranch on top of helping out Cremia. But the thing is, at least here in the N64 version, you can only get the reward at the other Skulltula house if you do it on the day or night of the first day. Any later than that, you're not getting the reward. 3DS version changed. I think you just need to do that Skulltula house in 1 day period. It doesn't matter which day you started on, though. But this one you can do any of the days of the 3, or the nights of the 3, as long as you actively get it done. I find these places interesting, if only because in some regards nowadays, they're not too different in progression or scale to the Breath or Tears dungeons. And it makes me kind of wish that if they ever brought back Gold Skulltulas, if they would ever just bring them back like this. Because I think with every game's individual movesets, they could do some interesting stuff with these. With that said, get used to hearing the item pickup jingle, because we're hearing that at times 3 to 5 times per room, and at times in very quick succession. With that said, you can by and large finish this spider house almost as soon as you clear Woodfall Temple. The only item you might need to make things a little easier is the hookshot. Because otherwise you can use a couple of magic beans here if you want to go out of the way to buy them on top of some water and bombs and all that. And I think the water in the main room counts as water you can pick up. If not, there's another room somewhere I think you can get that around here. But the reason I made it until now is mostly because this is when the reward would be the most relevant. Because the reward we're going to get here is going to help us do another side quest that I've already slightly foreshadowed back at Romani Ranch. Additionally, something I've always wanted to do but never really put the time into is actively trying to learn a very efficient route through these. Because due to some of the back and forth nature of some of these rooms, especially in this particular spider house, I always feel like I could be doing things a little faster, but I never know the exact way to do that. Admittedly, that kind of goes into the fact that I've always partially wanted to speedrun Majora's Mask at least once, learn how to do like not the bomb jumps, but like I think it's called bomb hovers, where you just kind of slide backwards after a bomb and go right through areas quickly. The main reason is mostly just motivation, because usually when I finish a playthrough of this nowadays, at least, I go, that was good, and then leave it alone for about a year. I have not done the thing I did back in high school several times where I played through the game twice to 3 times in a week in several years because I've just had too many games to play. In some regards, I guess this could have been the game I played the most through high school. And I might have even talked about that back in my videos I released during high school, but it's been about a decade since then. So, hell if I remember. Areas like this go into something I really like about Majora, though, and it's a complaint people have brought up about Zelda games pretty much universally, no matter if they're 2D or 3D. For a lot of them, you use the item you get in a dungeon to get a couple items here and there, but you mostly use it in the dungeon itself and the boss fight there. And after that, you don't really use them, especially if they're early game items. Ocarina's very guilty of this because of the items that are locked to Child Link, for instance. Majora, barring some masks you use to get just like a single heart piece, you use more or less all of your C items pretty regularly throughout the game, and you use the transformation masks pretty regularly throughout, barring things you get towards the end of the game that just don't have much of a chance to be used, period. The Deku mask is the only transformation mask that's more front-loaded than not, but even then, you still use it decently regularly throughout. And admittedly, part of that is just because at the end of the day, Majora's Mask is about 60 to 70% side quests. If you don't do them, it's easily the shortest 3D Zelda game. Even Wind Waker is a longer game technically at the end of the day because of its dungeons being longer, on top of the dungeon, on top of the timer structure not being a worry, so you don't have to worry about the literal size of the world. And maybe that's part of why I played this game so often, is it's just not as much of a time investment, even if I go for 100% as regularly as I do. And that's something I'll get more into in the credits or towards the end of the game in terms of my views on things and how it compares, but there are functions where that is a portion of it. Also notably, you actively do have to have the Ocarina around in this dungeon, because you actively need to play the Sonata of Awakening here. Find it kind of weird that you need to do this, considering you're always going to have the Sonata of Awakening, but I guess it's more meant to be a puzzle of like, how do I wake up a Deku? Oh, right, okay, I get you. I know what I need to do now, kind of deal. It's one of the few times you actively see this Deku model in the game, too, because usually you see the red variants of them that are more aggressive. Kind of interesting, because I always associate those more with Deku Scrubs than anything else in the series, just because you see them so often at the start of Ocarina. Swerve of a topic, but I've always loved how the Golden Skulltula icon looks in Ocarina and Majora. There's something very specific about this generation of hardware crunching down 3D graphics into 2D sprites like that, and how, like, the colors blend together and everything that I've always found super satisfying. And I'm kind of glad we're reaching a point now with indie games where we're starting to get really nostalgic for the N64, PS1 era visuals. Because I think there's a real good charm to them that low poly PS2 era on games just don't capture the same way. It's like how some games nowadays will even try to emulate the weird dithering that the PS1 had, for instance, that caused textures to like warble weirdly in games like Metal Gear Solid. There's a charm in that that I just find really attractive. Because 2D art, like 8-bit and 16-bit, will always just look good because it's distinctly nowadays, especially an art style choice, and that just is evergreen. But having a charming low poly look takes a certain kind of effort that isn't quite easy to do in comparison. Not to say that sprite work is easy either, because it's definitely not. Art in general is a very hard thing because you put so much soul into it, and it's part of why the AI phenomenon pisses me off, but that's a topic I'm not going to dive into tonight because I would be ranting for the next 20 minutes, and I don't like doing that unless I'm in a co-commentary, because then I have someone to bounce off of. We are approaching the end of this particular spider house, though, and the last few are all in this room. And I should also note, the Stones of Truth, you've seen them throughout the game, and you know they're a lot less common in this than they are in, say, Ocarina. They do still mark the time for you, but they don't tell you the time of day, they mark how much time is left in the cycle. Which I find kind of weird, because how much time is left in the cycle is always visible on screen. I guess maybe if you wanted it in more of a digital method than an analog method, so to speak. You can still get some hints from them with things down the line, but we're not going to be talking about that for a few more minutes at the very least. And you still have all the goofy animations if you do certain things against them, like play certain songs in front of them. You can get a fairy. If you hit them with bombs, they start to ascend and all that jazz. You collected all the Gold Skulltula spirits. The curse is now lifted. So let's go talk back to that guy in the front and see what we get. I actually don't know what that sign says. I don't think I've ever read it. Ah, hey, you're human again. Nice. Oh, I've been saved. I thought I was going to die. You see, a while back, someone told me I could become rich and he gave me this mask. He said that the instructions were inscribed somewhere in here, but when I went to look, I was cursed. If I had known that it would be such an ordeal, I never would have taken it. Here, take it. It's yours. We get the Mask of Truth. It's the same mask the Sheikah spoke of. This mask allows you to hear and understand the wisdom of gossip stones and the thoughts of animals. I've had enough of this. As soon as I get it together, I'm going home. So now we can use the Mask of Truth not only to investigate Sheikah stones for hints about things throughout the game, but also to understand animals. Ruff! I've had it with this foolish master. What's a racing dog like me doing in a place like this? Oh, how I miss the ranch. Well, that's a good hint about where we're about to go. We now want to hit up Romani Ranch for the final side quest we can do there in the game. Because you might have noticed when we went to go check out the Cuckoo farm on the last third day of a cycle, there was another door off to the side. That's a minigame you can do then, but it's a lot easier to get done now that we have this. While we're on our way there, I should note, you're going to want to bring some rupees for this. I'd say at least 120. You technically only need 50 to 80, depending on luck, but at the same time, that's also depending on luck. Because even with the Mask of Truth, there is an element of luck and uncertainty to this because of how this minigame works. We'll talk more about that in a moment, because it's time for us to enter this. This is Mamamoo Yan's Doggy Racetrack. It's pretty much what it says on the tin. You talk to Mamamoo Yan, you choose a dog, and it races. But we want to use the Mask of Truth and analyze the dog's thoughts. Rough, today I should do pretty well. The dogs will say lines of various effects that are either rough, rurough, or who whine. If the dog just says rough, they have the best chances of winning from that dialogue set. I especially find it's pretty good if they talk about winning for their kid and wife, or things like that. The gold dog in specific has the highest chances of winning, especially if it has a rough. I want to say reading the thoughts of a dog might also increase the chances, period, but don't quote me on that. But also, there's a dark blue dog. They consistently have the worst chance of winning. In fact, I think I've only seen them place maybe the top half of the race, maybe once. This is luck-based, and you can enter and exit the area over and over again to reset the dog's thoughts. Oh my, what are you doing to my dogs? Put them down. Okay, fine. What do you want on a day like this? This is Mamamoo Yan's Doggy Racetrack. Didn't you know that? Do you want to try a dog race? The minimum bet is 10 rupees. Will we still try? Yes. Then first, go in and fetch the doggy you think will run the fastest and bring it here. All right. Here's Goldie. Is it doggy fine? Yep. If the dog you brought takes first place, you get triple your bet. Second place gets double. If the dog you've chosen places third through fifth, you'll break even and get back however much you bet. If your dog does any worse than that, you'll lose whatever you bet. We want to bet at least 50 to 80 because we need to get 150 rupees or more for the ultimate reward for this minigame. Even with the advice I've given you, like choosing the gold dog over and over again, leaving to get the best thoughts that start with rough, this is luck-based. I've seen people play this game be stuck here for an entire 3-day cycle, essentially, because luck just isn't in their favor. It can be rough. A certain playthrough comes to mind where apparently he was here for about an hour to 2 hours, and he had to refresh his rupees once or twice. I can usually get it within the first 3 tries, but it's luck. It's entirely luck. Good luck. You might be here a little bit. But we placed first, so we're getting the maximum reward. Well, you took me for a walk and called me Spot. You took first place. You win triple the amount of your bet. That's 240 rupees. Nice going. You've won over 150 rupees, so I have to give you a bonus prize, too. All that for a piece of heart. No, I will not play again. I'm not a fan of that minigame. It's probably my least favorite in this particular game, and arguably one of the most luck-based minigames in the series. Up there with the old treasure chest game and all that, and what it feels like the baseball minigame feels like in A Link Between Worlds to me, because I suck at it. With that, our business in Romani Ranch is concluded forever, technically. There is a cutscene here I actually don't show off at the end of this 3-day cycle that I could recommend if you want to get into some mood stuff. For now, though, I'm gonna do more rupee grinding if memory serves and try to get closer and closer to that end goal of 5,000. We're pretty close at this point, and at this point, we're also just gonna be able to do things with the dongos to do this. So, the side quest I'm talking about, the cutscene I'm talking about, I recommend instead of doing rupee grinding and skipping straight to the end of the 3rd day if you're running low on time, go to Romani Ranch, especially if you're at the final 6 hours. I'll talk more about why in a few moments because we're getting towards the point where we're going to deposit, but it's very worth it for some mood setting and just breaking the hell out of your heart. Alright, let's turn in these rupees. We are currently at about 4,800 if memory serves, 4,857, so this will finally put us over the 5,000 threshold. I think this is also the earliest I've ever gotten this done in a playthrough. What, you really gonna give me that much? You're one rich little guy. All right, little guy, I've now got a total of 57. What's this? You've already saved over 5,000 rupees? Well, little guy, I can't take any more deposits. Sorry, but this is all I can give you. And that's another piece of heart. Usually, I have to wait until I have the next wallet to get this, but I did really good at rupee grinding this particular playthrough. Because the next wallet, which holds up to 500, definitely streamlines that a little bit. Because that the highest amount of rupees you can ever hold is 5,499. Kind of a weird number, but oh well. For now though, because it is now the 3rd day, there's going to be something else we can do over at Ikana Graveyard. So let's come back over here, and it's not nighttime, which needs to be for us to do things, but I might as well show this off. This is the Gravekeeper. Dampé returns. I'm Dampé the Gravekeeper, who watches over this graveyard. My face is frightening, but I'm not a bad person. All the graves here belong to the family members of the King of Ikana Castle, a place that lies beyond the mountains. Even nowadays, the ghosts come out at night. It's a frightening graveyard. Alright. And, to be frank, this is the last thing I can really do in this 3-day cycle. So, for like one of the only times in the series, we're actually going to use the Song of Double Time to skip to the night here. Because we can now open up another grave, since we have the Captain's Mask. If you aren't at 5,000 rupees yet, I recommend just using this time to grind that up, because hey, every little bit counts. Most other side quests in the game, I need other things set up to do. So we're going to be skipping ahead a little bit here. This particular side quest can be a little time consuming, but it's worth it, especially in the N64 version, because this is one of the few they actively changed the reward of going into the 3DS release. But we'll talk more about that in a few moments, because we have to have them break the grave once again. I've always found Ikana Graveyard to be such an interesting parallel to Kakariko Graveyard in terms of how much there is to do, because while there's less graves in it, those graves arguably have more important things for them, barring Dampé's grave, of course, and I guess the Sun Song if you want to go get that, even though that's technically optional. Like, Kakariko Graveyard technically has more to do in it, if only because it actually has a dungeon attached to it, but that's a topic for, technically a day of the past. Beneath the graveyard on the 3rd day is rather different, though, in its setup, because this is a minigame. Hello, Dampé. Who are you? I can't see you because it's too bright. You're not a ghost, are you? A fairy? Oh, it was the fairy's light. In that case, it's just perfect. I came looking for the royal family's legendary treasure, but my torch has gone out. I'm sorry, but could you walk in front of me and light the way? Please? You will? In that case, I'll use your light as I walk. Just lead me to the place where you think the treasure chest is buried. I aim to split the treasure with you. I'm counting on you now. So the way this minigame works, I guess side quest, is that you highlight Dampé with Z targeting and he will walk towards you. Otherwise, he will walk randomly. Some people think he walks randomly. No, as long as you're Z targeted, he will walk directly to you. You just kind of keep a safe distance between you two so that you can keep your distance going. You then need to guide him to the dirt spots around the area. Oh, there's something strange about this spot. Want me to dig here? Yep. Something strange is here, but there isn't any treasure. Show me another spot. So from here, you then need to guide him to the various dirt spots and hopefully dig fire out. The fire, if memory serves, is always in set places, or at the least, there's always fire in the 2 dirt spots that are higher up and you need to put Dampé onto platforms to reach. From there, I think it's the one in the corner and then one in the center, but I might be off on that. It's been a little bit since I had all this memorized. But something you have to be careful of is that there are respawning wall masters in here. Wall masters enemies that will descend from the ceiling with a very ominous sound. And if they grab you, you're forced out of the area. You can dodge them and then just straight up attack them for a kill, though. And I think they drop decently guaranteed rupees. But this side quest just takes a good amount of time. If only because Dampé himself is so slow. He does feel faster here than he did in Ocarina, but that's because in Ocarina you had to wait for him to patrol around his own very slow set path for that one minigame you can do with him. That's also randomly generated, if memory serves, in terms of where the heart piece is and that. But it's nowhere near as bad in my eyes, if only because it's such a constrained area in comparison. Like, you always know where you're going. You can have him be... You can take him directly from one spot to another rather than him taking the long way around in his own path. With that said, let's talk about the scene I was talking about. I guess if you are going to watch it yourself, you can go see it after this minigame, but for those who care, I'll talk about it outright. Skip maybe towards the end of this minigame if you don't want it spoiled for you. So, if you go to Romani Ranch at night on the 3rd day, especially if you've done the side quest where you save Romani from them and do the cow thing, otherwise I think the door is technically locked. You can actually find Romani and Cremia, as well as Cremia's friend Anju's family, who run the Stockpot Inn back in Clocktown, hiding away hoping that they can survive the crash of the moon. But what's really dark about it, for one thing, there's some tensions about potentially Anju's husband going missing. We don't exactly know the full story of that yet. But in the most dark part of it to me, we saw the milk bar. The milk bar in this world, milk comes in 2 varieties, actual cow milk and Chateau Romani. Chateau Romani is essentially alcohol with how they talk about it. Particularly Gorman getting drunk on it, and all that jazz. Romani in that scene is pretty off-acting. She acts like she's drunk. Cremia, knowing that there's probably a low chance of their survival, drinks her sister to sleep, essentially, so that she doesn't feel fear during the final hours. And that is just heartbreaking in a way that the series seldom gets to be. Like, yeah, Zelda has its dark moments. Twilight Princess, I'm Looking at You, Tears has a good amount of it itself. But because of the inherent doomed nature of Termina, barring our own action, they get to do some really heartbreaking stuff that I love in the most messed up of ways. Like, there's that whole, tragedy meme, and especially when it comes to people writing their own OCs and all that. But Majora does it in a way that I seldom see, and it's kind of interesting to look at that in regards to the whole Y2K culture back then, how this game's ad even kind of has that level of dread to it, because it's, can you save the world kind of deal as the kid looks up at the moon and all that. It's real heavy stuff. And it's part of why Majora's Mask, I think, is one of the most unique feeling games out there. Like, there's a couple of games that get this kind of level of, oh god, what if things aren't going to work out okay to them, especially in the indie scene. But seldom do they capture quite this level of energy. And for those just joining back in, hello. It's the leader of the ghosts! Upon finding all the fires, a big Poe spawns in. This is a little bit of a, not unique mini-boss, it's in a couple of places, but you don't fight it too often. The way it works is sort of like the Poe sisters did in the Forest Temple of Ocarina. They will roam invisibly for a little bit, and then appear again trying to spit into you with their lantern. But you can just prevent them from attacking in a lot of cases by either not Z-targeting them, which I tend to not do for some reason, and shooting arrows at them. Doesn't take many shots, 3 or 4 arrows, and then they're dead. They're not even that big of a threat combat-wise. But this is worth doing for 2 distinct reasons. For one, we're gonna get the main reward from the quest, but what's interesting about Poes is that, like Ocarina of Time, you can put them in bottles. And big Poes, especially if you haven't gotten the 5,000 rupees, are very worth it to do this too. We'll talk more about why in a few moments. For now, let's see what our reward is here in the N64 version for completing this little side quest. I called it a minigame earlier, that's technically true, but also not. For defeating the Big Poe here in the N64 version, we get something very useful. Another bottle. With that said, if you're playing the 3DS version, this is a heart piece. The bottle that's here is the one that was moved over to Komei's shooting gallery over in Southern Swamp after beating Woodfall Temple. I think it's ultimately better placed there than here, if only because it streamlines the Pirate's Fortress stuff in the long run. Getting this bottle here is still useful because we're going to be using bottles a lot in the next 3-day cycle, but it definitely feels a little underwhelming compared to the effort you put into it. I ain't seen nothing, I don't know nothing. Sure, Dampé. With that, our business in Ikana Graveyard is done until the next 3-day cycle. So now let's just come over here and check if the post office is open, and it is, but you can't do the minigame this late. The postman is just sad. Oh, I want to flee, but it's not written in the schedule. To me, the delivery schedule is the highest priority. The postman whose priority is delivery was added to your notebook. And there's even a little letter here. To myself, you've been doing a great job delivering the mail. I have a request for my hardworking self. All of the townsfolk have taken refuge. I want myself to flee too. Even if it's not written on the schedule, I want myself to flee. Please. From me. Dark. For now, we now need to wait until 10 p.m. because my next order of business lies at the Curiosity Shop. That's the name of this place. Because it's here we can sell the Big Poe and take a look at what it nets you. And also, hey look, there's my bottle that I'm missing. Tonight's special bargain was just stolen. It came in seconds ago. This is really hot, I kid you not. Actually, it's something sold over at the bomb shop, but a thief sold it to me. It's a bomb bag, check it out, buy it. So, in the case you didn't save the old lady, you can buy the bomb bag here for twice the price you can at the bomb shop, but you can also buy the cool bottle in case you had it stolen or your sword. If the sword gets stolen, just do a reset on the timer, it's not worth it. What is worth it is selling our Big Poe. As soon as you get through all the dialogue. Big Poes sell for an incredible 200 rupees. So, doing a lot of rupee grinding between the Takuri and Big Poe this 3-day cycle is very good to do if you want to get that heart piece as soon as you can. Which I already have, which, hey, nice and dandy. Admittedly, these rupees are technically wasted, but since I already have the heart piece, it's not like it matters. With that, though, there are technically some very, very minor things I could do to go out of my way to do, like doing part of the dungeon to maybe get the next dungeon item to get the next owl statue and all that jazz, but it's not worth it. That's everything we can do on this 3-day cycle. So let's just not even witness the final hours and just use the Song of Time. As much as I love the final hours theme, in fact, I've actually had times where I just sit there for the entire 6 hours and rewind at the very last second. Let's go back in time. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 19, we're gonna start a 3-day cycle anew and head towards our next dungeon after some very minor setup. See you guys then.